shoe. Who else could it be but your man Lou? Yeah.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louis T? Welcome to Monday Night Football Overtime. Browns, Jets, Jets. Not much of a contest here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this game because it doesn't warrant a lot of time. The Jets were absolutely ravaged by injuries going into this ball game. No Sam Darnold at quarterback. Then the backup goes down in Trevor Siemian to a nasty ankle injury. Luke Falk's in the game. No CJ Mosley. No Quinnen Williams. Yeah. It was that kind of night for the Jets. Meanwhile, for the Browns, nice bounce back game. They needed this. Had they played anybody else in the league, they might have lost tonight. I don't know. They weren't their sharpest. Literally, this game was played within a 60-yard radius for much of the first three quarters. Literally, from the Jets' goal line to the Browns' 40-yard line was where this game was played for at least the better half of 2.5 quarters. And the Browns still couldn't score any points. I mean, it was ridiculous how good a field position they were getting. Conversely, how bad the field position was for the Jets. And they couldn't get themselves out of it because it was run Le'Veon on first bell, run Le'Veon on second bell down, and then maybe try to throw it on third down and get sacked by Myles Garrett. So it was rough for the Jets. The Browns did a great job of pinning them deep in their own territory for much of the night. And the Jets didn't help themselves with penalties that always kept them pinned deep. And then when they tried to throw it, either they would drop a pass, it'd be errant, or Myles Garrett would sack them. It was a vicious cycle. Either way. And you know what's the funniest part? I'll say this. We'll talk about the Browns briefly, and then we'll talk about the real news of the night, and that's Minkah Fitzpatrick being shipped off to the Steelers in exchange for a number of picks going both ways. We'll discuss that here shortly, but you know what was funny was when the Jets, it was 16-3. The Jets made their first real move of the night. They actually completed a deep pass, did Luke Falk, on an underthrown ball to Robbie Anderson. And it got them from the shadow of their own goal line, essentially out into Browns territory. Then Robbie Anderson caught another pass on third down. This time, about 10 yards or so on 3rd and 5. But it was another stick mover. And you felt good. And you're like, man, if they score a touchdown here, it's literally a one-score game. What if Luke Falk does the unthinkable on Monday night? It crossed my mind, even if only for 0.2 of a millisecond. It was a fleeting thought that crossed my mind. What if Luke Falk does this? And then the Jets promptly went Jets on me. And Luke Falk had a 3rd and 2 in which Jamison Crowder was wide open, but he was only reading one side of the field and never bothered to look that way. And tried to force it to Robbie Anderson. Hey, Robbie had come through for him twice already. Why not airmail it in the back of the end zone to Robbie once more? And then on 4th down, he ran forwards and threw it backwards to Le'Veon Bell. And he tried his damnedest to pick up 2 yards, but ended up coming about a half yard short of the first down. And that was pretty much all she wrote. And so I got excited. Really, I did. I got excited when they got down there. I'm like, maybe this is actually about to be a game. That quickly went away. And then ODB, shame on you if you step toot, the old dirty backup, promptly put this game away with his career-high 89-yard catch and run touchdown as he welcomed himself back to the Meadowlands and put this game officially away at 23-3, which ended up being your final score in this ball game. The Jets didn't stand a chance tonight. They were overmatched in more ways than one. And it wasn't as bad as it could have been. If the Browns were on their A game, this could have easily been one of those 43-3 beatdowns. But luckily enough for them, the football gods saw to it that this game stayed within relative reach and didn't get out of hand. And so 23-3 is all the damage that was necessary to get the Browns their first win of the season, get them to 1-1. They're going to have to play a lot better than this. I assure you, you're going to have to play a lot better than this to beat the Rams next week at home on Sunday Night Football. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. In any event, they get the win. They get back to 500 on the season. And with the news of Ben Roethlisberger being out for the duration of this year and looking around at the rest of the landscape, Cincinnati stinks. This could easily turn into a two-team race. I'm not giving up on the Steelers. I talked about that on lockdown coverage earlier today. I still think that they've got a legitimate shot to rally around Mason Rudolph. I'm not counting the Steelers out quite yet. I'll give them 3 or 4 weeks to see what they're able to manifest here over the next month or so. Dig themselves out of this 0-2 hole. See what Mason Rudolph can do. If it doesn't go well over the next 3 or 4 weeks, then you probably know it's a two-team race in the AFC North. And I would put my money then on the Baltimore Ravens to hold serve there and repeat as division champs. But we will see. Too early to be using the P word and talking about winning the division, this, that, and the third. Still tons of football to be played. And thus, we find ourselves talking about a massive trade in the National Football League. As this game was slogging along, the Dolphins and the Steelers were behind the scenes working on a blockbuster deal to send former first-round pick Minkah Fitzpatrick, who just yesterday, or was it the day before yesterday? No, it was like 3 days ago, got to his agent and said, hey, I want out of here. I'm a winner. These guys are losers. I can't take this. I need out. His agent got on the phone and then contacted the Miami Dolphins, which seems to be the trend right now for the Dolphins, that everybody wants out. And I don't blame them. I actually talked about that on lockdown coverage earlier today when I was talking about the Patriots-Dolphins game. It was a shame because there are about 3 guys on that Dolphins defense. And I know the rest of those guys are trying hard, okay? But there are about 3 guys on that defense that I looked at and said, man, you could really help someone. And they were playing their asses off, and it was to no avail. And I talked about those 3 players as Jerome Baker, Xavier Howard, and Minkah Fitzpatrick. Well, Minkah is out of there. He is now a Pittsburgh Steeler. Unfortunately for the other 2, they're not going anywhere. Xavier Howard just signed a massive deal to stay in Miami, and Baker just got there. Well, hell, Minkah just got there too. But if Baker decided he wanted out, maybe they could find a suitor. But he's not Minkah Fitzpatrick, so you can't really make the same kind of demand and expect someone to come calling. But you never know. In any event, Minkah Fitzpatrick moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this is an interesting trade because on one hand, I get it from the Steelers standpoint, even though I felt like they've spent so many resources in that secondary, specifically at safety over the last, let's call it 5 to 7 years. I feel like they spent a ton of picks in that secondary, as a matter of fact. Still haven't gotten it to the way they want it to be. But it's interesting because you're 0-2, no Ben Roethlisberger. This could turn out to be a 5-11, 6-10 season, and that could turn out to be the 9th pick in the draft. I don't know if I want to give up the 9th pick in the draft. However, you could turn it around, and I think this is what they're banking on. This is what they're betting on. They could turn this season around, go 9-7, go 10-6, make that the 20th or the 24th pick in the 2020 draft, and then you don't feel so bad about handing it out. So it'll be interesting to see what this pick turns into, because if the Steelers don't turn it around, if Mason Rudolph stinks and they go 4-12 or 5-11, that's going to be a really good pick. And don't forget, the Dolphins already have their own pick and the Texans' first-round pick. Now they have 3, count them, 3 first-round picks in 2020. I think the Texans are going to be a mediocre team this year, right around 7-9, 8-8. If that is the case, that's going to be a top 15 pick. If the Steelers aren't any good, that could be a potential top 15, top 10 pick. And we know the Dolphins are going to be the number one pick in the draft. At this point, they look like the worst team in football. So they could easily have one of those Cleveland Brown type of situations where the first, 15 picks of the draft belong to the Miami Dolphins. I don't know if the Browns have ever had it like that before, though. But they could be in a position, maybe the Browns have. They've accumulated picks like that in the past. One year they had the first and the fourth pick overall, and they might have had 15 too. I don't know. But they could be in a similar spot where they could have the first 3 out of 15 picks in the draft. And they could be trying to turn this thing around sooner rather than later. Similar to what the Raiders did this past season. The Raiders actually had a really competitive game, at least for a half, against more like a quarter, but whatever. It's interesting, and because, again, what are the Steelers going to be this year? What this trade says to me, yes, it's for the long haul because Minkah Fitzpatrick is only in year 2 of a 5-year deal, 4 years, and then the option on the 5th year. So they feel good about, him being on a rookie deal. The Dolphins have already paid him most of his guaranteed money, so the Steelers aren't on the hook for that. They're pretty much on the hook for just the base salary at this point. So it's a really team-friendly deal. You're getting a young, talented football player in the prime of his career that still hasn't even scratched the surface yet. So they feel good about the acquisition. But what are you giving up? Is that first-round pick top 15, or is it back end of the first round? You feel a lot better if it's back into the first round versus, top 15. Again, Minkah Fitzpatrick was the 12th, 13th pick in the draft. So in their mind's eye, we just traded for the 13th pick in the 2018 NFL draft. We feel good about that. So we'll see how it goes for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Big move for them. They want to shore up a defense that was shredded by Russell Wilson to the tune of 29 of 35. Yes, only 6 incompletions for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. They want to clean that up, and Minkah Fitzpatrick is a guy that can help them do that. And so, again, they're going to be leaning on their defense. With no Ben Roethlisberger, they're going to have to lean on the run game. They're going to have to lean on their defense. I didn't think the defense was terrible versus Seattle, but it wasn't good enough. Like I said earlier today, can't be giving up 28 points and expecting to win with Mason Rudolph at quarterback. You're going to have to lower that number down to somewhere in the 20 to 23 range. You limit opponents under 24, you're going to have a realistic shot of winning with Mason Rudolph at quarterback. If that number gets up to 27, 28, 29, you're going to find yourself in a shootout that you're probably going to lose. So they need to improve their defensive output. A guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick going to help them do that immediately. And so, beneficial trade for both parties. The Dolphins are looking to acquire draft assets. They don't want your stuff. They don't want your players. They want your draft capital. And so, they're continuing to stockpile picks. I haven't seen a team, and I know the Browns have done it, but the Browns never fully came out and said, we are going to tank and stink and we don't care. The Dolphins are literally raising up their middle finger to their fan base and to every player in their locker room because they are terrible and they don't care. They're not bashful about going out and getting their brains bashed in week after week. All right. The product that they're putting on the field, again, the defense isn't horrible. They're still fighting, but the offense is just brutal. It is one of the worst products I've ever seen in the NFL. And we've seen some bad offenses, some bad defenses. That product that they're putting on the field is comical. In today's NFL, it's comical what they're doing on offense. It's bad. I mean, it's really, really bad. And so I look at them and I don't see any hope in sight right now. And they may not be done with the moves. They may still be trading more players. Who's to say? I mean, they are absolutely cleaning house. And I thought the tweet by Xavier Howard was spot on, in which he simply just tweeted out the final episode of Fresh Prince where Will is in the living room looking around at empty space. Everything's gone, and he's kind of looking around like, damn, this is it, huh? Everybody's gone, and we're moving out. And that's pretty much the scene in Miami. And Xavier's looking around like, damn, where'd everybody go? All the guys that I was cool with, all the guys I came up with, they gone. And they may not be done. And I don't know when this thing is going to get turned around. So, I don't know. That's crazy. But Dolphins get Minkah Fitzpatrick. We'll see how that ends up working out. Enough of me talking. Let's get to you guys talking. So, let's get to the comment section. See what is being said. And see what we got. Everyday Flash says, big price to pay for Steelers. Interesting, they're not giving up with Ben out for the year. They must like Rudolph. And that's essentially what I just said. It's interesting that they're trading for Minkah. That means they still think they can win with Mason Rudolph. They don't think that this season is a wash. And why should they? They're 0-2, but throw the Patriots game out. That was a death trap, as I mentioned. This was a winnable football game. Rudolph, as I said earlier on lockdown coverage, he didn't look terrible in this game. He wasn't horrendous. He had a shot. And had the Steelers defensively been able to get a stop at the end, they just needed one stop to give Rudolph the football back. I would have been anxious to see if he would have been able to get them in the field goal range. I think he might have been able to do it. So they're not giving up, nor should they. And this trade speaks volumes as to where they think they are this season with Mason Rudolph. Sean Mack says the speed of the Browns defense is what kept Bell in check for the most part. Yeah, that and the fact that they knew they couldn't throw the football past the line of scrimmage. That also helps too. Sean Mack says Buckeye Jerome Baker. Yes, Jerome Baker was out there playing ball for the Dolphins, man. Another one of those, as I mentioned, he was one of three guys I felt bad for. Now, and then there were just two. Okay, Xavier Howard and Jerome Baker on that Dolphins defense that I feel bad for. Maybe Baker asked for his way out too. I don't know. We'll see. Gregory Lightbody says, is Minkah worth a first, and how much is Ramsey worth? Yeah, Minkah's worth. Again, I talked about this earlier, and I talked about this on the Redskins video when I asked should the Redskins trade for Minkah. If I'm the Dolphins, I want my first-round pick back. I just spent a first-round pick on him in the 2018 NFL draft. We just had the 2019 NFL draft. So we're one draft removed from when I spent a first-round pick on this guy. I want my damn first-round pick back. It's not like this guy stinks. He's a damn good football player that just doesn't want to lose for the next season or two. He wants to go somewhere else where he will be valued and actually having a chance to win on a weekly basis. We understand that. We want guys that want to be here. And so, if you want out, go find a trade partner. I just make sure they know I want a one. That's it. If I can get my one back, we can figure out all the rest of the logistics. You know, throw in some late rounders and swap a couple of picks here and there, 4th, 5th, 7th, all that good stuff. But I just want my one back. If I get that back, we good. And that's what happened. So, Dolphins like, hey, we Gucci, man. We'll do it. So, yes, he's worth a first. And Jalen Ramsey, also worth a first. And Ramsey, to me, is worth more than a Minkah Fitzpatrick because now here's the kicker. Unlike Minkah Fitzpatrick, who is on a team-friendly rookie deal for the next 3 years, Jalen Ramsey wants to be paid and is going to get paid wherever he goes. If he gets out of Jacksonville, he's going to get broken off. I don't know if it'll happen immediately or not, but I would assume so. If you're going to trade for him, you don't want a one-year rental. You want a guy that's going to come in and be with you for the long haul. And so you got to be careful with that because this guy's a little bit of a head case. So if you trade for him and you break him off with some bread and he starts cutting up, you're stuck. So the guy's an ultimate talent, though. And I don't think you're going to find a better corner. I think he's the best corner in football right now. Hands down, I think Jalen Ramsey is the best corner in football. And that value right there, because when you start ranking positions in football and the importance of them, I always argue, where does corner rank? To me, it's quarterback number one. That's not even up for debate. You don't even really need to mention that. But after quarterback, I think it's a debate. Chicken or the egg, left tackle or pass rusher, your choice. And then after those two positions, I think corner is the next most important position. So, and you're talking about the best in the game. The Jags have already said the conversation starts with a 1, but we want more than that. All right? They want what the Dolphins got for Laramie Tunsil and Kenny Stills. They want one of those type of deals. They probably won't get 2 1s, but they want a 1 and a 2 or a 1 and a 3. And somebody's going to give it up. Somebody's going to give it up. It'll be only a matter of time. As Adam Schefter eloquently put it, next, Jalen Ramsey. Sums it up. Sounds about right to me. Sean Mack says, or Dominic Garland says, should Redskins go for Jalen Ramsey? No, they shouldn't. And they're not going to, because of what it's going to cost. As I mentioned with the Minkah Fitzpatrick video, the Redskins are in no position to give up draft capital. They already don't have a second round pick. And let's say it takes a first and a third to get Jalen Ramsey. Now you don't have a pick until the 4th round if you're the Redskins. Mind you, you still got to turn around and pay this man. There's no way the Redskins, who already have the highest paid corner in the league on their team, or was the highest paid corner at one point, and Josh Norman on their team, there's no way they're going out and getting Jalen Ramsey. It's not happening. Continuing right along, Sean Mack says, our starting quarterback, Deshaun Kaiser, in our 0-16 season was tanking. It wasn't, though, because he was a young quarterback. It would be the equivalent of the Dolphins from week 1 saying we're going to start Josh Rosen. Well, we don't know what Josh Rosen is, and we want to find out. So it would have been interesting to see. Like, the Browns were really trying to win football games with Deshaun Kaiser. Kaiser was legitimately trying to win football games. The Dolphins are looking to get their brains bashed in every week. They're just trying to minimize how bad the damage is. Like, instead of losing by 49 like they did in week 1, they lost by 43. They subtracted the deficit by 6. All right? They lessened the beating by 6 whole points. This week, let's see if we can get it into the 30s. Like, that's where they are. The Browns weren't at that point. The Browns were losing heartbreaking games, 13-10, 19-16 because they couldn't make a field goal. Like, you weren't getting your brains beat in every single week. You were losing games close. These guys stink. It's not the same thing. Let's see. Captain Spartan says, I just got off of work. Did my Steelers really trade for Minkah, or are you joking around? No, we're dead ass serious. Why would we joke about these things, Cap? These aren't things you joke about. We don't waste people's time by joking about things like this. This is a serious ass trade. Don't you see it scrolling across the crawl at the top? Like, we don't put fake news at the top of the screen, man. Come on now. You've been here long enough to know the rules to the game. Then play. Let's see. RG3 hashtag says, why so many injuries? Is just only the second week of football. Because the Reaper is out to task. I sent out a tweet earlier. Protect your stuff, man. If you don't know, now you know. The Reaper is out to task heavy, man. Heavy. He's out to reach out and touch folks. Protect your stuff, or you could be next. I've already warned you, all right? You've been warned. Don't come crying to me when your stuff is getting carted off and your season is down the tubes. Protect your stuff at all costs, all right? Reaper's out to task heavy, man. All right, let's see. Captain also says, I cried when I learned Ben is out for the season. Possibly this is the end for him if Mason balls out. Ben is the quarterback I grew up with. He already made the statement, and Ben was going to do this. I'm going to do everything in my power to come back stronger than ever from this injury. And so what he's doing with that statement is he's setting the tone that, hey, I don't give a shit what this young fella does. He could win every single game from here on out. I want my spot back when I get healthy. So we're kind of setting the stage for Ben to come back. Let's see what Mason does. As you mentioned, if he balls out, maybe the Steelers are like, hey, Ben, man, it's been a hell of a run, dog. Man, we had some really good times. And then Mike Tomlin kind of turns his head and says, but this shit is over, bruh. Hey, you remember the time in Super Bowl, fill in the blank, when we beat Arizona on that last second throw to Tones in the corner of the end zone? Remember that? Man, that was good times, man. Remember the time we almost beat the Packers in the Super Bowl? If Rashad Mendenhall ain't fumbled, we would have won that game. Man, those were good times. Hey, man, we had a good run, bruh. But you gotta go. We got a young fella that's ready to go, man. And we gonna let him roll. So, hey, Ben. Peace. That could happen. But Ben's already setting the table like, hey, when I get healthy, I want my shit back. Okay? And that's what Ben does. Like the other time, when they drafted Mason Rudolph and he was talking about, I don't know, I might retire. Then they draft Mason Rudolph in the 3rd round and Ben's like, yo, I want to play for 27 more years. That's a classic Ben Roethlisberger move. So I surmise that once Ben is healthy next year, he'll be back in the saddle no matter what happens with Mason Rudolph. But again, we will see. Let's see. All right. Sean Mack says, lay off the cook crack, bro. Marshawn Lattimore is the best cornerback in the NFL. Really? I just saw Brandon Cooks smoke his ass yesterday. Really? All right. That same Marshawn Lattimore that was getting worked by the Texans on Monday Night Football a couple weeks back, even though I thought that was a fun matchup. It was a really fun matchup, but he got some work. Jalen Ramsey's not having that shit with Nuke, man. That whole strong man, you going to push me off and come back to the football, or you going to have Will Fuller running past. Jalen Ramsey's not having that. You the one on the cook crack, all right? Obviously, you haven't been watching enough Jalen Ramsey. You probably don't like him personally. You got to be able to take your feelings out of this, man. This ain't about who you like. This isn't a pageant, all right? This isn't a beauty pageant, and this isn't a friends pageant, okay? This is about who is the best baller out there, and the man is Jalen Ramsey, all right? Wake up. You've been asleep all night. Wake the hell up, Sean Mack. Let's see. Larry G's the best says, you realize that all the elite football players get injured, like the Drews, the Big Ben, CJ Mosley, others. No, not all of them. And this is the thing. Guys, like these quarterbacks generally don't get hurt. Like the Eli Mannings, the Phillip Rivers, the Drew Breeses. These guys don't generally get hurt. I was shocked when Drew Brees got injured. When Ben got hurt, I told you how I felt earlier. I'm not going to rehash that. I talked about that on lockdown coverage earlier today. But I wasn't expecting him to be out that long. Like, these things don't happen to quarterbacks. Yeah, linebackers get hurt all the time. Running backs, receivers. We see it all the time. Quarterbacks generally don't get hurt like this. All right? If you tear something in the pocket like a Brady did a few years ago, a decade ago now it is, those things happen from time to time, but it's rare. Starting quarterbacks don't get hurt for the season. They get hurt for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that sort of thing. Ben's gone for the entire season. That's rare. Let's see. Sean Mack says, Kaiser was trying, but he just flat out stunk, bro. Yeah, he was trying, though. That's the difference. They don't give a damn in Miami right now. Let's see. Gregory Lightbody says, Redskins get first for Williams, then trade Ramsey. Again, this is the thing Redskins fans have to stop doing. You have to stop trying to pawn your stuff off on somebody else for a first-round pick. Nobody wants Trent Williams. First of all, you got to realize that the Jaguars don't need Trent Williams. Now, you could argue they need him. Whitney Merciless went to work on their left tackle in the game. But they have a young left tackle that they just drafted like 3 years ago out of Alabama in the second round. Like, they don't need a left tackle. They're not in the market for a left tackle. And where they are as a football team, they're not looking to give away a first-round pick or give away Jalen Ramsey for a 31-year-old aging veteran left tackle. Again, you got to be realistic about the value of Trent Williams. Trent Williams' value is going to be its greatest, and we probably missed the window for it, but it's going to be its greatest when a team that thinks they're a Super Bowl contender, ready to win now, has an injury at left tackle, i.e. San Francisco. If that Joe Staley injury was for the remainder of the season, Trent Williams would have been a perfect fill-in there. Joe Staley is coming back. They just re-signed him to a 2-year deal. It doesn't make sense to trade for Trent Williams. The New England Patriots had an injury to Isaiah Wynn, to his toe. It's not a season-ending injury, I don't think. It sounds like it's actually pretty minor. They're not trading for Trent. They called for Trent. We should have did the deal. Well, I didn't want to do business with them. But the Texans wanted to do a deal. They felt like they were a Super Bowl contender. They were willing to part ways with some good quality stuff. That was the team to do the deal with. We passed on that opportunity. You're not going to move Trent for anything noteworthy, I don't think, at this point. And Bruce has already told you he's not trying to move him. Bruce wants to win. Bruce is a dickhead. So we're not going to get anything out of this thing. Anyway, Hank Midas says, is Brian Flores gone after the season? No. He took this job knowing what he was getting himself into. And the Dolphins hired him to set a culture and a tone. Like, hey, you come in, you assess the landscape of this roster. You figure out what guys fit what you're trying to do moving forward. What guys fit Brian Flores and your DNA. Because as a coach, your team is a reflection of your DNA. And so you come in, you figure out what guys can play for you and what guys can't. You get rid of the guys that can't. You keep the guys that can. And we're going to build this thing in your image. That's the way they're going to do this. So no, Brian Flores is a part of the solution. He's not a part of the problem, at least not right now. And so I think he's going to be there and try to help turn this thing around. Now, will he be able to see it through? The problem generally when you do these types of things, like in Cleveland, for instance, like in Philadelphia, when you trust the process, when you blow it up to build it back up, generally the people that were there when you were in the process of blowing it up and trying to build it back up aren't there to see the entire project through. Normally, you aren't going to be there to see it through its entirety, because you're going to be a casualty of a team that's trying to grow, and you're going to stink, and eventually something has to be done, and you're probably going to be one of the casualties of that. But I'm rooting for Brian Flores, and I hope it works for him in Miami. But no, he's not getting fired. Moving right along again. Hey, Everyday Flash, appreciate the super chat, man, as always. He says, I don't think the Steelers are done. Need a quarterback number 2. Isn't it crazy they traded Joshua Dobbs to Jacksonville thinking, hey, we got all these quarterbacks. We don't need Joshua Dobbs. So here you go, Jacksonville. Now they look up and they're like, shit, what we wouldn't give to get Joshua Dobbs back. All right. It is what it is. They'll be fine. It was funny. I saw a tweet today when they were like, hey, man, Landry Jones is officially a member of the XFL and under contract, and he can't come back to the Steelers. And I saw Steelers fans saying, thank God we were saved. So we'll see what the Steelers decide to do at backup quarterback. Hopefully they don't have to go exploring that option, and hopefully Mason Rudolph stays healthy and actually plays well for them. Let's see. Marvelous Track says, how do you think the Rams will do against these Browns? I think the Rams are going to be able, as long as they can protect and stop Myles Garrett from blowing up Jared Goff and blowing up their game plan, I think they'll have success. This Browns defense, I haven't been overly impressed in the first 2 weeks with them. I thought they did a good job tonight of doing the one thing that they had to do, which was stop Le'Veon Bell. I mean, the Jets literally couldn't do anything else but run tonight. And so, and there were still a couple of drives in there where L. Bell was getting it on every play, and they were still moving the football. That one drive that they scored the field goal on, it was all Le'Veon Bell running the football. So I haven't been overly impressed with the Browns defense. Obviously, they had the turnovers, and they made the Titans offense look like world beaters in week 1. A.J. Brown over 100 yards in that game. Derrick Henry killed him on a screen and ran all over him. I haven't been overly impressed, so I expect the Rams to be able to move the football effectively. Now, again, don't sleep on this Browns football team. They have talent on both sides of the football. Let's hope that their tight end, David Njoku, is okay and able to go next week. That was a nasty hit he took. That was a very nasty spill that he took trying to catch that football from Baker Mayfield. But at the end of the day, it should be a fairly competitive game. The Rams haven't been overly impressive themselves. They could easily be 0-2 if not for the Breeze injury and some mistakes that the Panthers made in that ball game. They could easily be 0-2, but they're 2-0. And that's what the good teams in this league do. They find ways to win and avoid losses. And so I expect the Rams to find a way to go on the road and win next week at Cleveland. But it's not going to be a cakewalk. It will not be. I can assure you of that. Another super chat. Big Blue Rising. Hey, appreciate the super chat, man. Thank you so much. He says, what it do, Lou? I remember you spoke about 3 teams from the same conference in the NFC making the playoffs. I think it's the NFC West. Yeah, I told you that I thought the 49ers were going to be a really good team this year. I didn't think they would be worthy of making the playoffs, though. It's still early, but 3 teams in that division are currently 2-0. 49ers, Seahawks, and the Rams. We'll see how long the 49ers can keep up this pace. I can tell you this much. The first 2 teams they played this season, the Buccaneers aren't trash, but they were able to go on the road and beat them. Buccaneers self-destructed in that game. They destroyed Cincinnati yesterday, and they ran the football well over 200 yards rushing in that game. I mean, they did whatever the hell they wanted to do in that football game, especially on the ground. The defense was dominant after a slow start. They're starting to gain confidence out there with this, and they're going to go and play their first home game of the season in week 3. I'm anxious to see if they're able to keep this level of play up. But you could be right. It could be the NFC West. And of all the divisions, remember, kind of threw them on the back burner with the NFC East. Like, nah, neither one of those divisions are getting to. I thought it was going to be either the NFC South, and it still could be. You know, don't want to count any of those teams out. Or the NFC North, which it seems like it's more plausible that it would be the North than the South right now, with the Panthers struggling the way they are and Drew Brees' injury. But again, I don't want to count anybody out at this point. But you're right, Big Blue. It could be the West right now with the way they're playing ball. Once again, thank you for that super chat. Let's see. RG3 hashtag says, haha, man. Now that Big Ben injured, even though I never wish injury on another man, but man, it feels good when the Steelers fans feel like their season is over. Nothing like some good old-fashioned family hatred, man. But as he said, no one ever wants to see another player get injured, man. I mean, I always want a team in my division when I play them. I want them at full strength because I don't want any excuses when I beat you. So that's generally how I approach things. But, you know, I'll take a layup when I can get it, like the Browns had tonight. I'll take a layup when I can get it, man. I'm cherry picking. All right, and if you give me a chance, like the Cowboys cherry picking their ass off. They about to beat up on the Dolphins in week 3, and then turn around week 4 Sunday night on the road in the Dome. They get Teddy Bridgewater instead of Drew Brees. You think they not cherry picking running down the court? Oh! Trying to get that outlet pass so they could go get an easy deuce? Hell yeah. You know, you never wish injury on anybody, but you will take full advantage of that opportunity if it were to come your way. JP says, can you open up the phone lines, please? Negative. Not opening up the phone lines tonight. We're just going to go through the comment section and get out of here. Larry G's the best says, Steelers going to regret giving away that first-round pick for Minkah Fitzpatrick because it's a lot of great quarterbacks coming out in the 2020 draft unless they're trying to tank for Trevor in the 2021 draft. Haven't been overly impressed with Trevor Lawrence this year. And I told you, last year when he was outstanding, I said, it's rare that guys get better when they start out with that ridiculous freshman season. It's usually down from there. So I'm not saying Trevor Lawrence isn't going to be a really good quarterback, but everyone's already labeling him with that Andrew Luck can't miss type of momentum and praise. I don't necessarily see it right now, but I know the guy's talented because I saw it last year. But again, I think it's going to go down a little bit. You know what I mean? So in any event, the Steelers like Mason Rudolph. Like they're not in the market for a quarterback right now as it stands. They think that Mason Rudolph could be their quarterback of the future. So we'll see. Sean Mack says, knock it off, bro. Even the best cornerbacks get burnt sometimes. Yeah, you're right. Sometimes, but I rarely, if ever, see Jalen Ramsey get burnt. So I've seen him get beat here and there, but I take Jalen Ramsey over any corner in the league right now. I put him up against anybody. So there's that. Protect Sports says Jalen is the best cornerback in football. Simple. I'm with you, bro. Got my vote. JP says, I'm so mad we didn't get Fitz. We missed out on Clowney. We missed out on Minkah. And we better not miss out on Jalen Ramsey. We're not getting him either, JP. And again, what do you want to give up? Like, it's one thing if these are free agents and they wouldn't want to come to Washington anyway. But it's another thing when you got to give up draft picks. Like, you're acting as if the Redskins got 3 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and they could just hand out picks and be okay. That's how you end up being bad in the future. Like the Texans are going to be, because they gave up all of their draft capital to try to win now, and then they're going to look up, their team is going to be old, and they're not going to have any young players to pass the torch to because they gave away all their draft picks. Like, that's how you become old overnight. You don't want to be that way, and the Redskins aren't going to do that anyhow. Let's see. Going through the comment section, and Gregory Lightbody says, do you think Kevin can be like Sean McVay? We will see. I'm not sure. The Redskins think very highly of him, though. Sean Mack says, remember I picked the Rams to smoke my Browns next week, and the way we're playing, it looks like it will really happen. And you did. I remember you saying that the 2 games you were going to get your ass whooped on were the New England game and the Rams game. So we will see if that happens or not. JP says, after watching the first quarter of this game, I knew it was going to be ass cheeks. I mean, you should have known that going into the game, knowing the circumstances the Jets were facing going into the game. Larry G's the best says, laughing my ass off, Minkah don't realize he have to play the Ravens, Lamar Jackson again, not once but twice. Minkah, you can run, but you can't hide. Hey, he'll feel a lot better about the supporting cast that's helping him try to defend Lamar Jackson these next 2 times than the guys he had on his side the first time around. So that's funny, though. Gregory Lightbody says, you say Jordan Love is the guy to look out for. Why? Oh, you're talking about the quarterback for Nevada. Dude is super talented. I mean, I really like what this guy brings to the table. He reminds me a lot of what Josh Allen was for me when I first laid eyes on him at Wyoming. I just see a lot of the same attributes. Big, athletic, huge arm, can make all the plays. Out there in the sort of that Midwest mountain range area where no one's paying attention, and so he's kind of off the beaten path. But I think he's one of those guys that's going to rise up draft boards once we start overanalyzing these quarterbacks and we get closer to the draft time. You're gonna start hearing his name, and people are gonna start falling in love with his measurables and his arm talent, and they're gonna start watching the tape. And I don't know what he's doing at Nevada. I know what he was doing last year, and it was impressive. What he does this year will determine if teams really fall in love with him or not, but it's another story for another day. Sean Mack says, I told you, I've been telling everyone, it's Jake Fromm and Jacob Eason at quarterback in the 2020 draft. We'll see. That's too much ex-Georgia Bulldog love for me. We'll see what happens there. Moving right along. Protect Sports says, I wanted Clowney, especially when you only had to give up a third and a ham sandwich. I think everybody wanted their hands on Clowney. I just think that having to pay Clowney was going to be the thing that you didn't want to have to do if you're the Redskins. Still got players that you got to pay, a la Brandon Sheriff. So I just don't think they were looking forward to having to pay. That's the same reason I think Jalen Ramsey, outside of compensation for him, which is going to be a lot steeper than Clowney, you still got to pay Ramsey. And again, that's why I said the Redskins aren't probably going to be in the market for him. Which is why Minkah Fitzpatrick made more sense, because you don't have to pay him anytime soon. He already has been paid his guarantees by Miami, and he's on a team-friendly deal for the next 3 years. So, in essence, you're getting quality service for not a lot of money. It's hard to pass that up, but you were going to have to pay in terms of draft capital. Protect Sports says, bro, you like the new content? I got to check it out. I have been so busy, I haven't been able to peruse other channels, but I would definitely check you out tonight and see what you were able to do. Are you back at work yet? If you aren't, then continue to churn out them videos. If you are, try to get them out when you can, man. But I would definitely check you out and see what the new content looks like. Y'all make sure y'all check out my man Protect Sports over there doing his thing on his channel. And also check out my man Sean Mack doing his thing on his channel with his videos. And he's dropping videos every so often. So y'all make sure y'all sub up those channels and give them some support, like the videos, and check on them every now and again. You know, turn on those notifications if you can, so when they upload something, you'll know. JP says, if the Steelers are really bad this year, does Mike Tomlin get fired even though he got an extension? No, he's not going anywhere. And you know, the Steelers don't fire head coaches, really. They don't. What Tomlin has, and looking at the AB situation and Le'Veon Bell, what he's had to endure over the years, I think people are really starting to respect Mike Tomlin for what he's had to put up with in Pittsburgh over the last 5 to 7 years with some of the personalities that he's had to overcome to keep this Steelers team as competitive as they've been for quite some time. JP also says, I'm sorry, but Adam Gase is not head coaching material. He's a coordinator at best. I think we've said that numerous times on this show, so that's not new news. JP says, are Xavier Howard and Kenyon Drake the next Dolphins players to be unloaded? Xavier Howard isn't going anywhere. He's one of those building blocks in Miami. That's why they gave him the new deal. They knew they were going to blow this thing up before they gave him that deal, and they gave him the deal anyway because they want him to be one of the foundations of their team, and he's very young and still going into the prime of his career. So they feel like when they start winning, he will still be in line with what they're trying to do. So I don't see him going anywhere. As for Kenyon Drake, they have started taking offers for him. They're listening. He's really talented, but I don't know what he's going to fetch them in return. So we'll see. He may be more valuable to them. Like I always go with the used car theory. It's paid off. It's yours. If someone doesn't want to give you what you think that car is worth, it's worth more to you to just keep it. It works, gets you from point A to B. No reason to give it away if it still has value to you. If you want $5,000 and they're only willing to give you $3,000, you're like, either I get my 5Gs or I'll just keep it and continue to drive it. It still works. All right, so with Kenyon Drake, we'll see what the Dolphins decide to do there. Sean Mack says, thanks for the shout out, bro. No doubt, man. Anytime, bro. Anytime I can try to put people on to what you're doing over there, man, I'm definitely going to do it. JP says, I also wouldn't be surprised if Christian Wilkins gets traded, even though they just drafted him. Again, another tone setter in that locker room. They drafted him because of the leader that he is. Those are the kinds of players they want in that locker room. Guys that are going to stick it out, that want to be in Miami, that they feel like can be foundation and tone setters. All right, foundation building blocks and tone setters. Xavier Howard and Christian Wilkins are those types of guys. I think the Ohio State linebacker Baker is another one of those guys. You know, if he doesn't want out, if he wants to stay and help build this thing up, he's another guy that I think they really like. And Captain says, is Raekwon McMillan and Jerome Baker available? I don't think Jerome Baker is, but Raekwon McMillan definitely is. So, anyway, Ricky L says, well, Lou, my car has bad tires and bad brakes, so I'm selling it. Well, again, it's what value does it have to you? If you already know your car is a lemon, then you got to get what you can for it and move on. It's sort of like the Jadeveon Clowney situation. The Texans said to themselves, hey, this dude's been hurt a little bit, even though he hasn't been hurt in the last 2 years, but dude's been hurt a little bit. Production isn't all that. And he wants what? Nah, we don't think he's worth all of that. Let's just get something for him. All right? Let's move him while we can. That's essentially what you need to do with your whip. Hey, man, I got bad tires. I can replace those tires. All right, got bad brakes. I can put on new brakes. All right, I can put on new brake pads. All right? So somebody else gets the whip and like, yo, this is actually a car that's in fairly good shape. Just need new tires and new brakes. I can do that. So, not that bad. Now, if you tell me, hey, man, and transmission about to go, or it needs a new engine, hey, bro, I might as well get a whole new car. Okay? So, new tires, new brakes, that's doable. So, we'll see. But in any event, I'm your man, Louis T, signing off. Minkah Fitzpatrick, now a Miami Dolphin. Browns get the win tonight on Monday Night Football, 23-3 over the hapless Jets. The Jets had so much promise coming into the season, and in a span of 2 weeks, you blow a 16-point lead in the fourth quarter to the Bills, and then your starting quarterback contracts mono and is going to be out for at least the next 4 to 6 weeks. And now all of a sudden your season is in a very perilous state. Damn, what happened in 2 weeks to the Jets. Nonetheless, Browns are now 1-1 on the season with a massive Sunday Night Football showdown at home versus the Los Angeles Rams. Meanwhile, the Jets are in trouble, and I don't see them digging themselves out of this 0-2 start with Sam Darnold out for the foreseeable future. If it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage it could be. I will return at some point, whether early in the morning, later on tonight, with the final installment of a lockdown coverage, the final 4 games of week number 2 in the National Football League. So I'll see you guys for that at some point. In any event, enjoy the rest of your night, get some rest, and we'll do this again tomorrow. I'm your man, Louis T, signing off. You guys have a great night.